Okay, class, so today we're going to look at inequalities a little bit more in depth than we did yesterday. So again, we're just reviewing. These are all things that we've written down and we've done before. We're just going to take this sort of to the next step and condense it down and review. If you need to hear a lot more information, then look at some of those other linked videos that I have so you can go back and see all the information that we did in class. So the piece of inequalities that we're sort of adding today is when there's multiple steps or when we have compound inequalities. So we should be able to deal with inequalities when we have variables on the same side as opposed to when we have variables on opposite sides. Right? So if our inequality sign is here, both of these variables on the left, so those inequalities or those variables are on the same side of the inequality sign. And when variables are on the same side, we get those together with the same sign. So we'll just combine like terms, and 4x plus 2x gives us a 6x. And then this is something we can just solve. And we will get x is greater than or equal to 2. We did not divide by a negative. We did not have to rewrite with the variable first. So there's no reason to flip the sign there. Okay, as opposed to on this second one, right, these variables are now on the right and the left of the inequality sign. And so when we solve this one, when the variables are on opposite sides, we need to get these together with the opposite sign. So if this was a positive 2x, we need to move it with a negative 2x. And right, we've talked about the fact that we want to write it underneath in the same location. And then again, when we're here, we're just going to start solving. We are not dividing by a negative, so there is no reason to flip the sign. And we will get x is greater than or equal to 6. Okay, compound inequalities, right? We had two types of compound inequalities that we would talk about. We could talk about compound and we could talk about compound or, right? Compound or inequalities, we always see the word or in the problem. And the majority of these had graphs that go out like oars on a boat. Compound and inequalities, we might see the word and, but we might see them all strung together in one thing. Either way, that's a compound and. In compound and inequalities, we typically see the shading in the middle or where they're both happening. Okay, so if I wanted you to write a compound inequality and we had a graph like this, we would be using the word or. If I wanted you to write a compound inequality and it had a graph that looked like this, we would be using the word and. Now, when we solve a compound inequality, if it's written as two separate things, so if we had something like 2x, is greater than 4, or x plus 1 is less than 7, let's just say. Okay, we would just solve these as two separate inequalities, and nothing is really different other than we bring down the word or with it. Okay, if this word or is then the word and, we would actually do the exact same thing as well, just bring down the word and. The problem is that, remember, sometimes with compound and, these are all strung together into one big long piece. Okay, and we don't see the word or the word and instead we see two inequality symbols within the same problem. And if that was the case, and we were seeing that situation, right, we ignored this information on the left and just covered up until we got past that first inequality sign. And we would look and say, okay, well, what would I do first if I solve this? Well, here, the first thing we would do is undo subtracting 4 by adding 4. And so that situation felt normal. We just have to remember that whatever we do to these two sides, we also have to do to the third side. And so then we would also bring down the same thing over here on the left. right? So we're adding 4, but then we're also adding 4 and then bringing down that 20. Okay, then again, we would undo multiplying by 2 by dividing, and then continue that same idea over here. Okay, this is then a compound and. So if we're paying attention to our symbols, we sort of were reviewing this yesterday in the video, right? We would know that 10 is a filled in circle, 12 is an open circle, right? And this statement was true. 10 is less than X, which is less than 12. So we would know it's true, and we would shade in between because it is a compound and. The last thing that we would need to consider or look at is once we get into sort of these more advanced inequalities, is it opens the door for some of the weird things to happen. So like what happens if we have 4y plus 8 is greater than 2 times 2y minus 4? Okay, well, we see parentheses. We know parentheses tell us to distribute. Okay, we have a couple variables that we want to get together. They're on opposite sides of the inequality sign, so I'm going to use the opposite sign to get them together. But 4y minus 4y cancels out, but it also cancels out over here. So the only thing that I have left, remember this is a -8, is 8 is greater than -8. So when that happened, when we had this weird situation that they canceled out, remember we then had to decide if it was true or if it was false. And whenever that happened and we got a true statement, we would say that it was all solutions, or it had infinite many solutions, right? Because we could pick all of them. If it was false, we said that there were no solutions. So in this case, 8 is not greater than -8. That is a false statement. So we would say that this is a no solution. Now, if we got something that is a true statement, like 4 is greater than or equal to 2, okay, we would say that's all solutions. It has an infinite number of solutions because all of them is infinite. But if we get something that we just solve straightforward like this has one solution, and we would just say that our answer is X is greater than or equal to 6. Okay, so you're gonna have some compound inequalities and a little bit of solving to do, only 5 problems today. Reach out and let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, you can use some of those other videos I linked as a resource as well. Have a great rest of the day.